Please welcome to the stage Skift Data and AI Advisory Partner, Vivek Bhogaraju.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you had a good and nourishing lunch break. So we're going to talk a little bit about the big questions ahead for data and AI in travel. And before I get started, I thought I'll do a couple of kind of level sets here. First of all, this is not about predicting the future of AI. I think we're just seeing a lot of inbound on this already, so I don't have to add to that. But it is more about grounding it in what it means for travel and how should we be thinking about it. So the way I've set up the next the session is for us to think about a handful of questions that we can think about what are the deliberations and what are the considerations that we should think through as we adopt AI, but also as we think about data being the foundational layer for AI. So the questions being that if you're trying to get started on an AI initiative now, what are the right questions to ask? What are the initial questions as you get going? Secondly, talk a little bit about how do we look at data the right way? There's a lot of conversation this morning about data layers and that being the foundational element. How do we think about it the right way? What is the right org for AI? It's an interesting one, almost answered after we bring talent on board, but how do we think about this? What are some data points that we've seen on other new functions we've created? And what are some learnings that we can take from that? And then I want to end on an optimistic note saying why I believe this is the right time for all of us to think about investing in AI. So the session is void of any exuberance and hype. It's grounded in reality in terms of from an operator and practitioner point of view. So with that, let's get going. What are the right questions to ask when we are getting started? And I felt like the kind of a one quick summary of this is, if you look at how we have seen AI evolve over the last couple of months and year, is to say that it is going to be a multitude of how we communicate with it. So that's where the multimodal part of it comes in. But also certain AI models will be better at doing certain tasks than others. And so that's where the multimodal and multimodal pieces come in it. One of the considerations here is that as we think about embarking on our initiatives, we may not get the right use case. Is this a text interaction? Is this a visual or a sort of a camera interaction? Is this a immersive interaction of all the things, sensory aspects coming together? It's also not clear what particular model, whether it's closed source or open source, is better at this. So given all of this is up in the air, thinking about how we develop these initiatives with the flexibility in mind that we might have to pivot as the technology evolves. So that's the first question and one of the considerations we need to keep in mind as we get started. I want to spend a little time on data, being that we are in travel where one of the unique things that we have is we have a very unique data set that is domain specific because we're trying to solve things within travel. So you probably have all seen some of these headlines. There is a imminent kind of a exponential increase in how data is being licensed. Majority of the use cases we are seeing are in media and in concrete content based, but I can see that apply to travel. And one of the things is how do we think about that as we think about data and AI in travel. So that's the first piece of context. The second piece of context I want to talk about is one of the very early findings that the team at OpenAI came up with. And the findings are that if we use a rich data set, a domain-specific data set, and we use different models, the model performance somehow converges. So one of the ways we can think about this is to say that the underlying domain-specific data is going to help us get to that performance irrespective of the model. Early finding, but it's a data point nonetheless. And the last thing is this research, if some of you have seen this, is the value of AI data training sets and how they are being monetized. And you can see that in this kind of chart that they've laid out, the value of the data sets globally across all industries, this is not just travel, is projected to go anywhere from between 2.5 billion a year to about just north of 27 billion a year. So there's going to be a lot of hunger and appetite for domain-specific data, and that's where all of us actually come in between. So given that, what are the considerations and questions to be asked when we think about data? One of the things that, if you've noticed, the majority of the data acquisition that happens in travel is short of scraping and crawling, and from public sites, but also private sites. That's how it has worked for the longest time. We are also faced with a reality where there are data silos not only between functions, between an organization, but between travel subsectors. Travel subsectors being, aircar activities, cruise, rail, hotel, short-term rental. So we are optimizing data today, and that's how the use cases are within travel subsectors. And so if we think broadly as all of travel, there is an opportunity where we can say, what does that mean for us if we bring all of these data sets together? So the opportunity for us and the considerations for us from an acquisition standpoint is, first of all, are we ethically sourcing the data? Like, are we taking consent from sources where we are collecting the data? And then the second one is it sustainable for the long term? So for example, is it accurate, is it reliable? All of the features that we need to see in data streams. So those are the two opportunities there. And we've always kind of teased within our sector about this connected trip. And so the opportunity now is, if you look at the underlying data, is there a way to connect and stitch data across travel subsectors? So across air, car, cruise, activities, short-term rental, and hotel. So that's the first set of opportunities. The second set of opportunity is, whenever data is being monetized at the level at which we are seeing, we'll always see that people will put up payment walls and licensing and trying to monetize that data. Whenever there are technological waves, we have seen two things happen. When technology and data are democratized, innovation kind of happens naturally and organically, and it actually accelerates. So here's an opportunity for us to lean in as an industry to say, what are the ways in which we can focus on data licensing and partnerships, and also envision looking at travel all together in terms of optimizing in the subsector. The next one is about how do we look at the org for AI? Like, we're going to bring new talent on board, hopefully from within the sector or from outside. And whenever we create new teams and new capabilities, one of the questions that always gets asked is that how do we find the right home for it? It's always somehow like asked till it's too late. So I would put forward a certain set of data points for us to consider. For example, Gartner published recently talking about the average tenure for chief data officers being like 30 months. So, if you think about what we're going to do in AI, it'll probably be even shorter. And actually, data and AI are foundational horizontal capabilities that require multiple teams to collaborate. And we have to think about how they think about smart handoffs, but also like setting the right expectations of where one role ends and the other one begins. And to think about finding the right home for AI, which can either be a central organization that can consult with various cross-functional teams, or can be an embedded organization that is embedded in each of the functional teams. I'll end on talking a little bit about why I believe this is the right time to invest in AI. And again, I'm doing this after making the earlier point saying that all the hype and exuberance aside, we have an opportunity to do a couple of things. I think you've seen some of these charts before, but I wanted to lay them side by side to see on one side where it talks about the AI maturity for travel being among the lowest among other industries. At the same time, the opportunity for AI being the highest. So we have an excellent runway ahead, but the starting point that we have today is actually we're at a pretty much at a disadvantage as we think about this sector compared to the others. So if that is the harsh reality, we have an opportunity to rise to the moment. And the way we have to think about this is there is always a narrow window of opportunity when there is a new tech wave that comes in to actually reset how we think about the industry. But also, if you think about it from a competitive landscape standpoint, every time there has been a new tech wave, it actually opens up opportunities for other players from other industries or big tech, as you might want to say, to come to certain domains where these realities exist. So being mindful of those opportunities, but also being mindful of the reality we face, we have an opportunity to overcome some of these industry challenges. I would say that while people talk about some of the challenges with travel we've talked about earlier today, like the fragmentation, the long tail of travel being the way it is, actually raises some fundamental challenges and how technology can be adopted. AI has the opportunity to stitch these varied different data sets together and kind of drive the traveler experience. So if you think about kind of what we talked about today in terms of how do we get started, what are the right questions to ask when we think about the data in the right way, what is the right home for data and AI teams, and also why this is the right time to invest in AI. During the afternoon sessions, we'll actually pivot. You'll see a little bit of transition. We're going to kick off with 3 sets of use cases we are seeing across our travel, where we are seeing data and AI being implemented. But we'll also talk about engineering velocity and how to stand up these teams and what are some of the examples, whether it's the search experience or otherwise, that we are seeing in all of travel. So with that, enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and thank you for your time.